and welcome to Audionautic Deep Space Network, episode 181. This is the Independent Musician's Guide to Production and Promotion. And this week we're talking about hardware limitations and why that's actually a good thing. It's an interesting topic because a lot of times we want to think, more gear, better, or being in the DAW is the greatest way to do it. But there's something to be said about limiting yourself and working around those, which creates some really interesting outcomes. My name is Sunwarper, and with me today is Curtis. What's going on?
It's going. I can't go much because Steve is kind of taking and monopolizing the space, but that's okay. That's where we need to be. But it's going well. How's your week? I haven't heard from you much this week. What's going on in your world?
Just still dealing with the fallout of my son being sick, catching up on stuff. He's still getting over it, so I had to take him to the doctor just to get checked up and all that. But he's doing well. He's doing way better than what was it, a week or two ago. So we're getting there. But yeah, I got a little bit of time to do some music with the tracker last night. I chose the tracker because I was hoping to spite Eon Lake today, but he's not here. But it's okay. It was still a win because the tracker's fun. And speaking of limitations, like, it is really interesting to work when you just have one dedicated piece of gear and just make it work. But to be fair, the tracker has a lot going for it. Real quick, I do want to mention, say hello to everybody in the chat. There is some talk about the TR-1000 that just released. We were debating if we wanted to just kind of do like a live reaction today, but cooler heads prevailed. So we'll take a look at it and talk about it and all of that next week. So head over to the Discord if you want to talk about it. It does look pretty cool. But yeah, that price, as Pat Brady puts, anyone want to purchase some kidneys? It is crazy. So hello to everybody in the chat. Let us know what you've been up to. If you use hardware, let us know how you find the limitations. If you find it, stagnating, or if you find it freeing, or if you're DAW and you love the DAW, then hey, let us know. Yeah. So should we get right into it, or have you been up to any musical stuff yourself?
It's mainly artwork. It's mainly been in Photoshop. After finishing off your artwork for your album, I had to do mine. And so that's been my focus. And so that's
I gotta send you those last two masters. I gotta get those put back into the chain and finished. It's been crazy. Yeah.
Well, it's what, 2 weeks now. And luckily I'm not really bothered about streaming, so that's okay.
I'll get them over to you soon. In the morning, I'm gonna do them. I've been getting up at like 4:50. I just can't sleep, so I'll just master stuff.
It's oddly specific.
Yeah, every morning it's 4:50. I'm like, what is this? Sometimes 4:51, so I sleep in a minute. But hey,
Okay. Hopefully by next week it'll be 4:20.
Let's hope not. While I like that number, that's pretty early.
That's fair. We're talking all about limitations this week, in the sense of we've talked a bit about conceptual limitations, and we've talked about, everyone, if you've been following the podcast for a while, will know that Eon Lake has his whiteboard where he jots down his ideas. You, Sunwarper, you've been on a trip recently of just having a certain amount of hardware to create a limitation to create that creativity, and so we're all about that, and we discussed that at length. This kind of stems from the Tonverk conversation we were having last week, where there's a piece of gear. We're talking about Elektron in general having massive pieces of gear generally, but each of their devices having a certain limitation, with the idea kind of cynically to be able to kind of buy them all, so you got a complete kit.
It's the Pokemon effect.
Yeah, exactly. I think that definitely should be a term. The Pokemon effect. But I suppose it got me thinking about this notion of where we've actually found some ingenuity in the limitations in our devices. Now, you do a lot about the P6, and you do a lot on your channel about how much you love the P6. And
I always keep it next to me on the desk. It's ready. Yeah,
exactly. Right now. Yeah. And this kind of got me thinking as well. It's like, you've managed on your channel to find some really decent workarounds and some really decent ways to move past the limitations. And so I just kind of wanted a collective meditation. We're having a shortened episode today because it's just the two of us. So I kind of just wanted to, in praise of presets that we did a few months ago, in praise of limitations. That's kind of where I'm coming from.
I hear you. Before we get into it, though, I have to say, because Mike put trackers are baffling, but I think if Ableton released a tracker window, Mike would change his tune
He would,
completely.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
And I think that's fair because you can have a horrible piece of gear, but if Ableton do it, it's great. I hate my TD3. I hate my TD3, but the plugin for the 303 in Ableton's amazing, and I use it all the time. So I'm
There you go. There you go. Yeah. Yeah. I had to say it. I saw it. No, trackers are crazy. They're weird, but like when it finally clicks, it is a very interesting workflow. It's not something I would use all the time, but it is. We always talk, get out of your comfort zones, right? And this will tie into the creative limitations, but it definitely just like gets me thinking in different ways because you're just seeing the music or seeing the workflow, whatever you want to call it, but in a completely different format. And you're not seeing waveforms, you're not seeing MIDI, you're not seeing plugins, you're seeing like an Excel sheet, and you're just going, oh well, what? And I like the classic, the vertical descent, but on the Polyend tracker, this one, you can go horizontal to make it a little more DAW-esque, but I don't do it. I like the vertical, but it's just cool because you just see it in this different way, and it's very analytical, but it like doing a lot of teaching with rhythm and things like that lately with like the 16th notes and stuff. It's all just laid out in this very interesting way. And I will add, we talked about Elektron, the Digitact, and subsequently a lot of other hardware of theirs was supposedly slightly inspired. Their sequencer was inspired by the tracker, not Polyend tracker, but just like tracker workflow with how you can do all these per step parameters and stuff like that. At least that's what I'm always told in my comments when I either cover the tracker or the Digitact, but it does make sense. But anyways, what that brings me to is, the limitations. That is a limitation of it, right? You're seeing it in this very different way, but that's why I like the limitations. You start thinking outside of your comfort zone because you're just forced to. Like with a sampler where you only have certain amounts of time or something like that, you have to do interesting things. Classic samplers, they had very small amounts of time. So what would they do? They would pitch up what they were going to sample in, and then they'd drop it once they had it in. And so it would be longer, but it would have all these little artifacts. And that became the classic tones that we love from those old school samplers and stuff like that. So, yeah.
I think it's absolutely fair. And I going beyond that as well. I think the notion of, like, you're talking about the trackers. I'm not very well versed on a tracker, but I imagine you're using your ears more than you're using your eyes. Which...
It can be both, right? Because you can set so many parameter things and just change, like, you can use the wheel or on a computer, change it. I want to go to A3 on this step. So it's kind of using your eyes in a different way because you're using your eyes with these text representations of musical information. Like the notes are just A4, A2, on all that stuff. And then you can say, on this step, I want to add an effect and it's going to be a delay and I want it this much, or I want to drop the pitch on this one. I did a jam with the tracker. It was based on that. I forget the song from Audionaut, but the whole song, the BPM is changing every step because you can just program a different BPM every step. And so it just like starts at 132 and by the halfway point, it's at half of that, and then it speeds back up, and it's trippy.
Well, okay. So, I mean, so to take this one step further in that regard, how we're talking about limitations here, and we're looking about what the benefit we get out of different limitations. The I wouldn't say moving because you still use your logic and you're still doing work right there, but the notion of working with the tracker and the differences in that regard, how does it make your beats, your sounds, your compositions, how does it change your process?
It may not necessarily change the outcome, but it changes the approach. So in the way that I'm sequencing and stuff, I'm not doing as much performance. I'll like start a performance or something, like place, because most trackers don't necessarily have a lot of keys and stuff. This one, the Polyend tracker, all of these can be either each sample you put in, because I think you can get 48 sample pads or something. I forget. But you can use this as like a keyboard. Now it's not very intuitive as a keyboard because it's just octaves going across. It's kind of cumbersome and all that. But you can perform, but what I typically do is maybe I'll perform something, but I'll program a lot just going in per step and saying, this is note A4, this is note D5 or, like just doing that. And so it's a very different approach from my normal way of just performing everything. So it leads to some different start points, which can lead to different outcomes, but sometimes it will be similar. But yeah.
Difference in what sense?
Which different? Like the outcome or the start point?
The outcome.
The outcome. So I find that the stuff I make with the tracker is, at least in terms of hardware, a bit more technical. And I think that's just because I'm going in on all these on a step basis and doing tons. I can do it on the P6, I can do it on the Digitact, but it's like the point of the tracker is to go by step rather than, I'm going to perform the drums now and stuff. So I think about the creation of it more, and I'm thinking more in a step base. Yeah, it is. Cresthead says it's coding music, sort of. Yeah, for sure. It is. It definitely is. And that's not typically how I work. So I like doing it in that way. Another thing is, like, when I sample into the tracker, I'll always do beat slice, which is my usual way. I always chop samples up, right? But then now I can go in on these per step things and program it in a different way than playing it live, and then go in and change every step's BPM or effect or change the filter, do all this. So it's like doing automation and things like that in a DAW, but it's just so nuanced in that you can go in this granular level of, like, on this step, on the 16th note, the E of 1, I'm going to put this effect. And on the and of 1, I'm going to do this effect. And, like, it's just crazy in that way. So you can just get so analytical in it.
That makes sense. Have you released anything made through your tracker yet?
It's a good question. I have no idea. I don't think so, because I think I haven't released since I got the tracker. I've done like reels and stuff like that, and beats on it and things like that, but I don't think anything on like an album wise, and it's not on the new album, because the new album's all ambient.
Yeah.
So I haven't. Okay. That's the thing. I haven't really. I've been thinking about venturing into ambient on the tracker, because that I feel like is a big limitation. Like, I don't know if limitation is the right word, right? But on the tracker, I typically, because it's so step based, I want to put in drums and just have that kind of basis. But I do think with what you can do on a tracker, with the per step things, you can change glide, you can change pitch, you can do like descending pitch through several steps. I think you could get some really cool ambient outcomes. It also, on the Polyend one, it has granular sampling. It has a wavetable sample. Like, you can send a sample in and do wavetable synthesis and stuff. So I do think it is fit for ambient. Like, it's primed for ambient. That's not where I go when I go to the tracker. You tell me, do you find with different hardware, you go to different genres, like, typically? Like, oh, on this setup, I like to do ambient. On this setup, I like to do live looping and guitar and, this and that. Not genre loosely. I don't mean, like, you're specifically, I'm going to make this house or psytrance track, but, just like, do you find you typically do drums when you do one thing, or you typically go in a more ambient route when you do this setup? Yes, yeah, you can reverse samples, Cresthead. Sorry, Curtis, just wanted to mention per step. Yeah, you can do like tons of stuff per step.
Yeah, I suppose if I'm out of the box, it tends to be beat based, and if it's ambient, at the moment at least, it tends to be. If I'm in the box, it tends to be ambient. Yeah, but then again, everything kind of breaks up so readily and so often that I can't really answer that question with confidence, I don't think. Because everything's always moving and everything's always there. I think I'm kind of going to I suppose, for example, if I'm going to pick up the Ultranova, or if I'm going to go to the Ultranova, I'm usually going in with the notion of, all right, I want to create an ARP. Mm-hmm. So yes, in that regard, yeah. But I suppose that's more of a self-imposed unconscious limitation of habit than anything else in that regard. Yeah, the Ultranova is really good for sequencing and arpeggiators. It's less good, I'd say, at just long held chords in that regard.
Yeah, see, so that's I think that ties into the idea of hardware limitations, right? We use hardware for certain things, but there's other ideas too of using hardware. If you have that and a sampler, right, you could take one of those more ARP things or something and try to create a drone out of it with tons of resampling effects, maybe get granular, loop it. So that's something that when we talk limitations of hardware, that's what I love about using one or two dedicated pieces of gear at a time. Because you have to think in these really weird abstract ways. Because if you're used to working in a DAW, right, with these unlimited potentials, you go, I want a drone. Well, I'll load up this synth. I can choose this preset, or I can make a synth. I can just up the sustain, release on the ADSR, and now I've got a pad. Add tons of effects. Supermassive is going to get thrown in there. Now my drone's there. But with just a couple pieces of hardware, you have to really think where you want to go with it. And I like the limitation or hitting that roadblock. It's not a roadblock where I would stop, right, and be like, this is too much, I give up. It's creatively freeing to be like, well, how can I work around this? So rather than thinking about the chords I'm playing or the chord progression or doing the sound design, I'm just trying to get past this little stumbling point. Go, well, how can I figure that out? And I like that, because then once I figure it out or get something, a happy accident that I wasn't expecting, I'm just off. I can go, okay, well, now what if I just add drums? What if I do this? And I like not getting so caught in the thinking of it. Oh, I need to EQ that or this. It's just like getting in that creative flow.
And so within that, because all that's very valid and all that's very ethereal and conceptual, and that's great. Can you give us an example of where something, a tangible example of where a limitation within a piece of your gear has given birth to something serendipitous, or something that you have stumbled across and it's brought you great joy?
Yeah, I mean, limiting myself to only using the sound generator on the SP404, right? It's very bare bones. There's not even a filter on the sound generator. The envelope doesn't work. They give you like 6 envelope settings. None of them do anything different. So it says
Yeah.
envelope A, B, C, or 1, 2, 3, whatever. And they don't make any difference. I don't think they've ever patched it either. I don't think it's ever been fixed in that sense, like with that. Um, but it is a great sound generator in generating waveforms, right? If you think of it more as like a waveform generator, not as the endpoint, but as the waveform generator, you then have these other features on the SP like merge sample, all of the effects, which has a filter. Every sample pad has, I think it doesn't have sustain, but it's got ADR, or a attack hold release, something like that. So you do get an envelope, you do get a filter. You just have to think in these smaller steps, right? First, I'm going to generate multiple waveforms, let's say. Then I'm going to put them at different semitones or pitches, things like that. Then I'm going to merge them. Then I'm going to add the filters, resamp. So it's this process of getting through it. But in doing that, I'm not thinking like I'm designing a pad. I'm just seeing where it goes. And then the end result, I'm just like, oh, that's cool. And I have this little synth I can play. And then I use the chromatic mode and just see what happens. And so I'm not thinking in my usual way on a DAW or something of like, I'm designing a pad and then I'm making the chords. It's just a different way of doing it. I also like not being on the screen and actually having these tangible encoders, whatever you want to call it, that I can move and play and things like that. So yeah, several songs on, I think it was Through the Quiet Dark, my last album, are all just experimenting in that way, or taking a sample and seeing where I can go with it using just resample. One thing I want to do too, speaking of sound generator, is try and use it to make all of the drums for a track, because it has 2 noise oscillators or 2 noise waveforms. So I'm thinking the only one I've been struggling with, like I've gotten good hi-hats using a ring modulator after. I've gotten good snares with like distortion and ring modulation, but the kick is the one I've struggled with. So I was thinking maybe doing a couple noise waveforms and then like a sine wave or something, but I'm still working on that one. But if anybody has ideas, if they make kicks with like random sounds and stuff, let me know. But in the chat. But that's the one I want to make, like the whole drums using just the sound generator.
That makes a lot of sense. Yeah, there's definitely something worth experimenting there. And if that limitation through the hardware, I'm sure that could breed learning, right? Because I think, as well as serendipity, the notion of learning something new about sound and sound design in general through a limitation of a sound, or you have to kind of, you might have to hodgepodge something, to use that phrase, or you might need to kind of use a piece of gear outside of its normal parameters or what it was sold for,
Yeah,
or what
that's
it
my
was,
favorite thing about the hardware, right? Is doing it for things it's not meant to do. Like the
Hmm.
SP, a lot of thought on it is that it's an effects box for like playing songs because you get long sample time and stuff, or for lo-fi, but it can be so much more than that. Like you can do ambient with it, like you can do whatever with any gear. And that's another thing, like when new gear comes out, I like to first always think, well, what is it that new gear does that interests me? And then is there a way with a combination of the gear I have, I can emulate that in some way or form, just to see what you can do with what you already have. I know that's getting slightly away
That's
from the
interesting.
ideas we're talking, but that is something I always like to think, like with the what is it, the TR-1000 or whatever, with the 909 and 808s and stuff. Like, yeah, you can't get the genuine, like an analog thing, but you could sample 909s and 808s and see what you can do, and maybe try to create weird LFOs on it on like an Elektron that could emulate some of the analog sound with like putting LFOs on the distortion or something, or pitch, so it like wobbles, just things like that, to just think outside of the norm.
Oh yeah, I think it's a very good way of looking at it. I think when we're marketed new gear, I think they market it specifically with genres or sounds which makes it sound the best, right? Like, um, there's, the SP404 is an interesting example when, it's used a lot in, lo-fi hip hop, and it's used a lot in, um, other down tempo genres of that regard. And it kind of makes sense because it's a slower tempo, it's a rawer sound. It's not like a Hydrosynth Explorer or anything like that, which is, it's got a massive digital matrix with lots of LFOs which kind of run it through, which makes it all kind of all everywhere. It's a very humble piece of gear. So it makes sense that they would market that in a certain direction and almost push the consumer in a certain way of making that happen. But within working out the limitations of what it can and can't do, allows, at least in my experience, to branch out away from that and see what else can be done without it.
Yeah, totally. And knowing your gear inside and out, like that's how, as you're saying, you can go do these crazy things that you wouldn't think it's possible. I want to just talk to the chat a little bit. We've got some chats going. Let me find where Cresthead says, so you're limited in one scene, but unlimited in another with the tracker. I'm not sure what that's in reference to. I mean, the tracker is crazy with how much you can do with it. I don't just mean the Polyan. There's free trackers you can get that are software and stuff like that. I think everybody should just look at a tracker, like see, because it is weird. It is daunting when you first get it, but if it clicks for you, like if it starts to make sense, it is very powerful, especially if you like Elektron workflows, because the tracker precedes the Elektron workflow, and it's similar in the sense you can click or take random steps and do things to them and do all sorts of fills through all the steps and stuff like that. So it's cool in that way. I also see Mike, this is a good one because this is what I've been thinking, but it was the pitch drop I wasn't doing. Kicks a sine wave with a short burst of noise. So I'd have to figure out, I'm thinking right now, the limitation, I'd have to do like a live resampling of the sine wave I make doing a pitch drop or something to get that, because you can't just set that on the SP, right? You can't just do a pitch drop. But the P6 has the pitch, what is it? The pitch envelope or whatever, where you could do that, but not on the SP. But yeah, that's what you can see, like in real time. I'm thinking, oh, how could I work around the lack of a pitch, like automation thing on the SP? Crescent says, for a kick, digestive biscuit, break it, sample it, pitch it down. That is cool, and that would be great, but that's not using just the sound generator on the SP. That was my challenge, is doing that, but that's a really good idea. Digestive biscuit, what is that, like a cookie or something, Curtis?
It's a type of biscuit that, yeah, it's a McVitie's biscuit. It's not like a cookie.
I'm gonna look this up now.
It's
Now I'm
made from
curious.
grains and wheat as opposed to sugar. I think it's made from like grains and wheat. It's like almost like, do you have Weetabix in the
Maybe.
States? You do that? It's a bit like that, but in a
I see
sweeter
it.
biscuit
Okay.
form. It's very
It
English, I
sounds it.
think.
It
And then kind of
sounds
you just dunk it.
it.
You dunk it and you take it.
Nice. Okay. Are you a fan of
Yeah.
digestive
We,
biscuits at all? Can you get them
I think it's
in Czech?
digestive. Yeah, they've got a bit of a markup. The Czechs have their own versions, but they're a bit sweeter. The Czechs generally have a bit more of a sweeter
Interesting.
palate. The digestive biscuit is, I mean, this is now just a massive tangent, but
That's why we're
yeah,
here.
digestive isn't that. It's not that sweet. So like, yeah, it's not that sweet. It's kind of it's got a sweet kind of cinnamony taste to it, but it's not kind of like in your face. I think it's kind of got a reputation of being a very plain biscuit, but it goes well with a
The
cup of
point
tea.
then is
And that's the main
it's to
thing.
dip in your tea or have with tea. Yeah, I gotcha.
Exactly. Many conversations about how long you dip your biscuit in tea for. That's the whole thing.
Sounds very contentious.
And yes, it's. Yeah, I mean, people. I
Well,
mean, we had a revolution before the French did. It was
what's
mainly
your
about that.
preferred
So,
time to be in the tea with the biscuit?
it's a good question. I still like it kind of crunchy, so not
Are
very
we
long
talking
at all.
like a second,
Couple of seconds.
3 seconds?
3 or 4, maybe. I'm not
All
a
right,
monster.
so let us know, chat that eats digestive. What is it? Digestive biscuits, whatever it's called. Is he completely
Digestive
wrong, or
biscuits,
is he
yeah.
in the right here?
I have to say, pretty much. But yeah, as Sleeping State says, they're also used as bases of things like cheesecake and stuff like that.
Nice. Okay, cool. They
Yeah.
also said, I can't stand trackers, but I do value writing in different formats. It changes how you approach creation, just like writing on a piano versus guitar, etc. Yes, and I want to read. M. Fizz also said, and I love this. This is really a good point. The physicality of the machines make me more convinced that I'm using an instrument, and the struggle to program stuff makes it more rewarding when something works out. There's totally something to be said about the tactile nature or tangible form of hardware. And even what he's saying with that kind of end reward or dopamine hit where it's like I struggled through learning the UI, whatever, and like I don't know, I feel like when you know hardware inside and out, you could just move so fast on it, you know? I'm not saying you can't in a DAW. It's just it's nice when you're not overloaded with every option possible in the music production world where it's like, well, this has 1 reverb or this has 3 reverbs. I need a reverb. Okay, I'm going to use that one, you know, or this is the step sequencer I can do. Here's how I'm going to sequence.
Well, this is it. I think that's a really good point. I think to branch off that, the notion of I'm thinking about my monologue, and it's a very basic machine in the grand scheme of things. Obviously, a monosynth, and the wavetables and the sound design elements are somewhat primitive in that regard. And obviously, because you can only get one, you have to think about how can you create some sort of phasing? How can you create some sort of thickening agent of the sound, right? Because it's usually either a sawtooth, a square, and that's it. You've got a sawtooth and you've got a square. So that becomes that for me at least, that became a lesson, or that became an exercise in pitching to create a sense of faux kind of unison in that sense, which is. So using these examples, I suppose what I'm getting at is using these examples of gear, which has got less there physically to play with. You haven't got all the options like you're talking about. Can lead you down the path of one of my favorite phrases. There's many ways to skin a cat, in the sense that you have to think about different ways to get the end result and find your vision. Which, if we're talking about deferred gratification and not just having a dopamine hit out of the box, you are learning something, right? It's like if you learn to construct something instead of buying it from IKEA or something like that. It's like there's a process involved. There's a Hobbesian kind of notion of labor involved, which allows you to take on information and apply it to different ways.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, is there anything else? We've got a couple minutes left, and I want to get to our community corner. But is there anything else you want to say? We do have some comments on the biscuits, whatever. What was it? I already forgot. Digestive biscuits, whatever. But is there anything you want to add before we go to the community corner?
No, let's crack it on. It's 39.
Yeah, all right. Well, so Cresshead says 1.5 seconds. Interesting. I think that's for the biscuits, or for how quick they can make music on their hardware. I don't know, but Yeah. And Mike says we've gone down the rabbit hole of biscuits and tea. Yeah, so if you enjoy these sorts of tangents or just talking about all things gear, existential thoughts with music production, we do talk gear sometimes. It's not all digestive biscuits, but we will be talking about the TR1000 next week and all of that. Consider becoming a patron. It helps support the show. It's how we do what we do week in and week out. And if you want to join, it was up, the QR code. There's a couple of ways. Yeah, there we go. Wow, we got double QR code. So there you go. You've got your choice of QR code to scan if you would like to join as a patron. Members get a ton. You get, I think it's quarterly sample packs, as well as an additional channels on the Discord, monthly hangouts. We just had our most recent one, and the next one is on the 25th of October. It'll be a Saturday, not a Sunday. So yeah, consider joining the Patreon and help support the show. And we also want to do our community highlights. So I'll send that over to Curtis. We have an album we want to share from one of our patrons. So go ahead, Curtis.
This was Coraline. Is one of our patrons, and this is not kind of a Paola thing. It's just I came across it when we were talking about on Sunday. It's a beautiful piece of work from Coraline, and there's a lot of variance there in terms of sound design and energy levels, and it's truly an album's album. And they brought it to us on Sunday, and Hydrofighter and I were kind of before Mike turned up, we were just kind of talking about it and talking about the story about how they came to create it. Coraline's on a bit of a journey, coming back from years of being away from creating music, and so it's really interesting to see how they are exploring tonality, which this album is really kind of doing that. So it's definitely worth a shout if you've got some time looking for a new album.
I love the album artwork, that minimalist aesthetic with the little green right there. Awesome. I love that. And if I think also I'm sorry I didn't get to say hi to all of our patrons today, but I saw Josh from Shady Ridge was in the chat earlier. If you're still there, what's going on? We covered them last week, and then we've also got Abby. I think they've got a new album coming out as well, but let me know in the chat or comments later, but we can cover that in a future one. We just put a link to Coraline's album right there. Thank you, Curtis, for that. And another patron of ours, FCC, what's going on? Always love when FCC puts music out. But speaking of FCC, they've also got that plugin, right? Over on our Discord, they put up a free plugin to check out.
Absolutely. And Discord's another place for us to kind of sit and chat about it, if that's kind of your space. A lovely community of people where we can sit and have these conversations outside of, broadcasting medium, so to speak. It's a really lovely place where we can share ideas, get help on any problems that we're having, and just sort of kind of shoot the shit when it comes to what's going on. If you are if you're keen, Mike in particular is quite a persistent poster in the best of ways. If you want to know what's going on with Ableton, you don't need to follow Ableton on any social media. You can just be on our Discord. Yeah, we got it there. Great. Ableton have got a new monthly subscription plan coming out.
Oh, right. I saw that he posted the rent to own or something, right, from Ableton. That's cool. Yeah,
that's the one. Yeah, and that's amazing. It's a fantastic kind of development from Ableton, and I know it's been going through, Bitwig, and I think is it Cubase or something is going through Splice, but this is
as
Ableton
long as in the end you can still own it. What drives me crazy about Logic for iPad, not Logic, but Logic for iPad, it's just monthly recurring fees just every month. But you can buy Logic for desktop one time, and it's good forever. You can get all of the updates. But Logic for iPad, I guess, is where they changed that. And we do have to get going. I just want to add, FCC says any feedback on the plugin would be great. I haven't had a chance to grab it yet. I will check it out soon when I get some time, hopefully. But I think Curtis said he got it, so we'll try and cover that very soon in the next couple of weeks. But with that, anything else you want to add, Curtis, before we go?
No, just to say that I've downloaded the plugin. I'm playing around with it. I want to bring it to everybody when I've got a bit more confidence with it, and I think that'll happen the next couple of weeks.
Maybe we can even bring FCC if you're game to come on. Maybe we can bring you on and you can cover it. So, yeah.
Yeah, it'd be good to see. It'd be good to get a developer's idea of what's going on and the intention. So yeah, that's great. Yes, thank you everyone for being here this week. It's been lovely to hang out with you and see where you're at. We will be in the Discord and we'll be doing stuff there until next week, I suppose.
That's it.
We'll be back at the normal time. But we are entering. Just a heads up, we're in October. We are entering. We're not there yet, but we are entering wibbly wobbly time. So I'm going to do the maths. And yeah, we'll work it out.
Oh, that will be interesting.
It's going to be a fun
ride
we'll have
for
to
the
next
think that
month.
one through. Yeah.
We're gonna have to think that one through. So wibbly wobbly time is coming.
Prepare yourselves. Wibbly wobbly time is coming. All right, I'm gonna just give the sign off warning, because when we hit end stream, if we end it immediately, it just like cuts off. So just letting you know, we are gonna end. So thank you for watching. This is your like 20 or 30-second heads up that this may cut out abruptly, but we're saying goodbye now. We'll see you next week. If you are listening on a podcast, do consider leaving a like or a rating. YouTube as well, leave a like or a comment afterwards. It helps a ton. We're always trying to reach new eyes and ears. So yeah, anything else you want to add there, Curtis? This is our little time killer before we hit the end.
Cresshead thanked me for getting the album. It's a wonderful album. It's an absolute pleasure, Cresshead. It's solid. I love it. It's a great album. Been listening to it constantly in the last week or so.
Nice. I think they made some of that with the Seek track, right? Yeah, that's cool.
I think it's all hardware.
Cool.
I think it's all hardware, and I think it's all kind of made. I don't know if it's all made in McDonald's, but I like the idea of that. So
there you go.
Going with that mythology.
There we go. All right. Well, until